So I am going to be reading from the word, 30th word, second aim, inshallah, from the Risale-i Nur. As I said to brothers here who are present, you will find some very interesting arguments in this Risale, this part of words, as it was written exactly 100 years ago. You might say, how did he have knowledge of these things then, 100 years ago? Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Compassionate. And yet the unbelievers assert, never will the hour come up upon us. So the disbelievers, this is from the Quran, disbelievers said, the hour, meaning the Qiyamah, the doomsday, will never come upon us, they said. Say, Kul, so Allah is saying to the noble Prophet, say to them, nay, but most surely my sustainer, by my sustainer, it will come upon you, by him who knows the unseen, from whom is not hidden the least little atom in the heavens and on the earth, nor is there anything less than that or greater, but it is in a clear book. Very interesting words, isn't it? See, the term used there for atom is dharra. If you look at the dictionary, Arabic dictionary, dharra means atom. So the Quran is saying nothing is hidden from him, from the tiniest atom in the heavens on the earth, nor anything smaller. So the Quran is saying there are smaller parts than the atom, nor anything smaller than that or greater, but they are all in a clear book. The clear book. So it's Levh-i Mahfuz, or the Quran also uses the term Kitabi Mubin. Kitabi Mubin. So this Risale is based on what we call Tahawwilat Zarrat. It means the changing of the atoms. The second aim in this chapter points out a mere atom's weight from the greatest treasure of this verse, that is, some jewels from the caskets of that are particles, and it discusses to some small degree their motion and their duty. It consists of an introduction and 3 points. So he's saying that from this verse, from the Quran, we are only explaining something that is an atom's weight. That's all. The transformation of particles are the vibrations and wanderings that occur while the signs of creation are being written in the book of the universe. By the pen of power, the pre-eternal inscriber. So he's saying that transformation of particles, because particles transform, atoms transform, they bond with other atoms, they form molecules, they're constantly transforming in the universe. And here's an interesting thing, he uses the term vibration. And all atoms vibrate. All atoms vibrate. Vibration. And wanderings, their travels, that occur while the signs of creation are being written in the book of the universe by the pen of power. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is constantly writing the story of the universe with the pen of the qadar, qudra, power, using these atoms. They are not games of chance and jumbled meaningless motions like the materialist and the naturalist fancy, like they think. Because today, after the development of quantum mechanics, they go inside the atom now. We try to study the inside of the atom, all the particles of the atom. And very interestingly, the more it's developed, the more they are saying it's a world of probabilities, world of randomness, chances. That's what they think, because they can't figure it out. But in 1925, look what he says. Like they think, he says, it is not a world, the miniature atomic world is not a games of chance or jumbled meaningless motions. The motions of each particle have a purpose. He's saying then. Like all beings, every particle says, in the name of Allah, at the start of its motion, and it raises loads infinitely exceeding its strength. Yeah, infinitely exceeding its strength because they're so small, but you can build a nuclear bombs with them. For example, a seed the size of a grain of wheat shoulders a load the size of a huge pine tree. And on completion of its duty, it says, all praise be to Allah. For by exhibiting an art that is beautiful and full of purpose, and a decoration that is fine and full of benefits, which astound all minds, it displays a work of art like an ode in praise of the glorious Maker. So in a way, all of these particles, as they are in motion, as they are in momentum, they are actually saying Bismillah with their emotion. They are submitting to the will of Allah and His commandment and performing their duty. And when their duty is fulfilled, they say, all praise be to Allah. Look carefully at the pomegranates and the ears of corn. For example, indeed, the transformation of atomic particles are the motion and meaningful vibrations that proceed according to the dictation and principles of the clear record. It follows a certain principles which are written in the clear record, which is the title of divine knowledge. The term clear record used in the Quran is Imam-i Mubin, Imam-ul Mubin, which is the infinite knowledge, the divine knowledge of Allah, and clear book, which is Kitab-i Mubin, is usually referred to when that knowledge materializes. When the time comes, Allah puts that knowledge into material form. So divine knowledge and command, and it's the arrangement of the past, origin, and future progeny of everything in the world of the unseen, gaib. They proceed by means of transcription from the clear book, which is a title of divine power. So when we say Imam Mubin, we are referring to divine knowledge, the knowledge of Allah. When we say Kitab Mubin, we are referring to Kudra of Allah. Because Qadr comes from the term Kudra. It also means due measure. He creates everything in precise measure. Otherwise, the universe could not be standing anyway. Thus, this motion and the meaningful vibration proceeds from the writing and drawing of the words of power in the tablet of effacement and reaffirmation. Levh-i mahf ve ispat. Effacement and reaffirmation. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with His knowledge, He knows what will occur, and then He brings it into existence, which is a metaphorical page and the reality of the stream of time. So Levh-i mahf ve ispat is like a planning world, like the drawings of what would happen in the universe. And it sort of shapes time and space in the universe when Allah decides to create it. So the first point to discuss two matters. In every facet of the motion of all particles, the light of divine unity, Tawheed, shines like the sun. For as if, for as is proved briefly in the first indication of the 10th word, and in detailed in the 22nd word, if every particle, if every atom, if every particle is not an official of Allah, acting with His permission and under His authority, and if it's not undergoing change within His knowledge and power, then every particle must have infinite knowledge and limitless power, and it must have eyes that see everything, a face that looks at everything, and authority over all things. So, since the universe is working so immensely, there is a harmony, there's order there, there's balance there, there's measurement there. And when we investigate the universe, when we go down to the fundamental particles, we see this world that we can't understand. We see particles that can act like, waves, and when you observe, it starts turning into a particle. And an area, a world that we can, not understand. We can only work on it mathematically. See, some of the indications about, the behavior of particles, the information that comes to us from the famous, double slit experiments. That's where it comes from. Ruhi knows this, right? The double slit experiment. But the thing is, most people don't realize all of these motions of the atoms, or sorry, the particles within the atoms, they are all mathematical calculations. We don't actually observe them. We can't see them. Like there are places like CERN in Switzerland where they, smash atoms into particles into each other. Then the computers show them the results, but we don't ever look into the atom and see an actual particle itself. That's the very interesting thing. So most of it is based on mathematical calculations. So if these little tiny particles were not under the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a being that has infinite power, infinite knowledge, then you would need to give a godly attributes to each particle, because they would need to have the knowledge about their surroundings, about the universe. Then they would have the knowledge to come together, form things, within the universe and keep it in balance. So you would have trillions and trillions of gods if you don't believe in one God. You would need to say they're all gods, which some people do, don't they? They, without realizing, beliefs like pantheism, they think universe itself is the God. But the universe itself is not conscious. It's not self-aware. It does not really know what it's doing. Normally, all we should have in the universe is chaos. Everything should be chaotic. But we don't see chaos. On the contrary, the creation of the universe, when we go back to the beginning, it follows by a period which we call fine-tuning. Everything coming from a immense inflation, which they call Big Bang, and not even there are atoms at the beginning, nothing but some sort of energy, right? The electromagnetic radiation. There's nothing else, and then it cools down, and then atoms start appearing. The universe starts forming. It is not even visible until 380,000 years after the Big Bang. There's nothing to see. You can't see. It's sort of opaque. It's like transparent. Nothing can be seen. The light and darkness only appears after 380,000 years. When photons are able to travel freely. It's very interesting. So all of these occurrences, from that radiation soup to today, When we have this solar system working, perfectly, we have these galaxies, we have these all living beings like us, you know, who are designed, incredibly. If you don't believe that there is this power controlling all this behind it, then you need to believe in billions and billions of gods and give godly attributes to every atom, every molecule in the universe. Well, that's what he's saying anyway. So his knowledge and power, then every particle must have these unique qualities. For every particle of the elements, atoms, acts or can act in an orderly fashion in all animate beings. Our bodies are made up of atoms, particles, atoms, and since they are operating in an harmonious, orderly way, we are able to, maintain our bodies. Otherwise, if it was quite chaotic, they will all fall apart. We should not be together. Our bodies should not be holding together. So the order within things and laws according to which they are formed differ from one thing to the next. And that's another interesting thing. We say that there are 5 states of matter. As I mentioned once before, in the past, we used to think there's only 3 states of matter, gas, liquid, and solid. Now we have the plasma. Now we have the Einstein-Bose condensation. So there's 5 states of matter. It means that matter can go into different states to form different things, but matter can bond in different ways also to form other things. So that's quite interesting too. So one of the things, the most necessary things is water for life, isn't it? That is why Earth is so unique. And water is made up of, two hydrogen, 1 oxygen, yeah? H2O. But if you separate them, oxygen is a flammable substance. It burns. And hydrogen at the sun's nucleus, the core, it causes nuclear fusion and produces energy, billions of, tons of energy every second at temperatures around 15 million degrees, the core of the sun. So you can see both elements are very interesting. One is a burning substance. The other one is a type of energy which will penetrate you. But 2 of them joins with one and becomes water. So who's controlling all this? You have to ask the big question. Can you come out of it philosophically by saying, oh, it's happening all randomly by chance? You cannot explain. It's impossible. So if their order was not known to the particles could not act upon that order, or even if they could act, they could not act without error. There will be a lot of mistakes, problems, issues, in which case the particles which are performing their duties in beings are either acting with the permission and the command and within the knowledge and the will of the owner of an all-encompassing knowledge, or they themselves must have such an all-encompassing knowledge and power. Which one sounds more logical, rational to accept? Should we say all particles, atoms, have all-encompassing knowledge, each of them, and power, and know what they're doing? Or should we accept that there is one power, infinite power, infinite knowledge, which controls and governs all of them? Which is more logical? Yes, no philosophy could accept that anyway. Or you can look at it another way to one example for Tawheed, because he's talking about Tawheed there, oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Think about the army. You know, there's one general comes out. You can have, let us say, 10,000 soldiers lined up. He says, turn left. All of them turns left. Follows the other. Perfect discipline. One general can control 10,000 men. But can 10,000 men control one general? There's a logic in that. One will say turn left, the other one right, the other one jump, the other one sit. It will be all chaos. All chaos. That is why the Quran says, had there been more than one God, the universe would be in chaos. In chaos. In Usul al-Din, you know, in Islamic theology, scholars have come up with these two arguments about Tawheed. They said there are two powerful arguments, delil, they call them delil. Delil in English means evidence. And they said you cannot make argument against them. Many of the scholars, that's what they say. And one of them, they use this verse from the Quran. And they say that the Quran says, you know, had there been more than one God, there would be chaos in the universe. And a scholar called Muhasibi and Razi, Fahrettin Razi, the famous Mufassir, he says that when you study the universe, you see a tertib in the universe. Tertib means order. And he says tertib indicates to tedbir. Tedbir means governance. If you see order somewhere, there must be governance. There's some sort of a governor because there's order, everything running smoothly. And this indicates to one governor. Otherwise, there would be clashes. And the other argument, it's called Delil el-Tamanu. And that argument is, if there were more than one God, their power, their knowledge, their will would contradict, which is quite logical. You know, one would say this, the other one would say something else. If one of them's order is occurs, the other's power is neglected. It's gone. Then he's not a God. So all particles of air, for example, can enter the bodies of all animate beings, living organisms, the fruits of all flowers, and the structures of leaves, all leaves. They can act within them, although the way although the factory of a, sorry, I jumped somewhere. Although the way beings are formed is all different and in their order and systems quite distinct as well. So the atmosphere that we breathe, the oxygen, it enters into every living being because they can't survive without that. But for the fish, it's different because they get it from the water, through their gills under the water. For the plants, it's different. For the land animals, it's different. And humans are a little bit different too. They enter all of the bodies of these beings and they work according to their own systems, that body system. It's very interesting. You know, oxygen is a molecule as well. It's made up of certain atoms as well. And even when we speak, another example, you know, an analogy, even when we speak, if there was no air, sound does not travel. You know, you can go into space, you can scream as much as you like. You know, even if we were this close, you can't hear me because there's nothing. Sound is a mechanical thing, wave. So that person cannot hear me from this distance. Sound needs the air to travel. But the funny thing is this, people never think about these things usually. But when I'm speaking at this moment, you know, the air is pushing out of my mouth and my tongue twisting and making the air turn into meaningful words, the way the tongue twists. And when it comes out of my mouth, it goes into the ears of everyone separately, but they're all waves, without making any errors. That's quite interesting too, isn't it? Without any distortion, without any errors, it travels into the ears of everyone here. So sometimes the regular things that we face daily, we take them for granted. We don't realize the way they occur and the wisdom behind it. We just take it for granted. So it occurs as though the factory of a fig, were a loom for weaving cloth, and the factory of a pomegranate, a machine for producing sugar, and so on. The programs of their structures and bodies all differ from each other. You know, when you look at all these fruits, vegetables coming out of the earth, they're coming from the same place. It's just a dark soil. All they do is just suck water and minerals from the earth and from the dark soil and use the oxygen. Yeah. And then what is the product? Out of that timber, same wood, timber. Some of them you see yellow bananas, some of them red, you know, different fruit. Some of them sour, some of them sweet. They all contain vitamins. They all contain beneficial minerals. It's amazing. It's as if they all know what they're doing, which is not possible. It means they are controlled. A particle of air then enters or can enter all of them, all of these plants. It takes up its position and acts in a wisely and masterly fashion without error. And on completion of its duty, it departs. Same as in the human body. We take it in, it goes into our lungs, from our lungs, it goes into our bloodstream, it starts being distributed to all of our cells, you know. Once used up, the carbon dioxide, what is not useful anymore, taken out again. A big factory. We don't really have any control of it. So either we have to say all of these things, the air, the atoms, you know, the particles in our body, the organs in our body, they all know what they're doing. They all got infinite knowledge, or someone else is controlling all of them, governing them. So a mobile particle of mobile air, which they're all moving, therefore either must know the forms, shapes, measures, and formations with which plants and animals and even fruits and flowers are clothed, or else it must be an official acting under the command and will of the one who does know. So either these elements know exactly what they're doing, and they have knowledge about every living being's body, because as soon as they enter that living being, they know what to do. Or they are an official under the command of the one who knows. Similarly, with a stationary particle or a stationary earth, for example, it has the ability to be means and place of cultivation in the earth, the soil, for all seeds and all flowering plants and fruit-bearing trees, either they must be in the particle itself or in the handful of soil that is its little house immaterial machinery and factories in good working order to the number of the varieties of the trees and plants and flowers and fruits in the world. In fact, it is in every single particle there must be a factory peculiar to it and all the equipment and machinery necessary for running that factory. Or else it must have a miraculous knowledge that knows all things about all things, and a miracle working power that creates everything from nothing. Or those duties are performed at the command and with the permission of one who is all-knowing. He is the knowing of all things, and through the power and might of the one who is absolutely powerful over all things. See the difficulty? If you don't give everything to God, then you need to give it to all the particles, all the atoms, all the molecules which have no intellect, no consciousness. They're not even self-aware. But they know exactly what they're doing. That's the problem. It's either they know or somebody is governing them. Someone knows everything. If an untrained and inexperienced, common, ordinary, and blind man was to go to Europe, and in all factories were there to work at all the trades and the crafts in perfect and masterly fashion, and if he was to display a wise and artistic skill to such a degree that it left everyone speechless and with amazement, anyone with a grain of consciousness would know that the man is not acting on his own initiative, but that a master of all trades was teaching him and causing him to work like that. You know, you're working, let us say, at a car factory somewhere, and this guy walks in there, and he knows every part of the assembly, every part. From the little tiny, bolts on the tires all the way to the engine, every part. And he starts doing them all. Then you would know this guy is not doing this by himself. Somebody's taught him all this knowledge. And if there was a blind and impotent man who lived in a simple little house and was unable to rise from his place, and if small fragments of stones and bits and pieces of material like bone and cotton were to enter his little house, and then sacks of sugar, bales of cloth, crates of jewelry, finely made cloth encrusted with jewels, and delicious foods were to emerge, would anyone with a little grain of intelligence not say that man is a wretched doorkeeper or merely a latch on the door of the factory of a wondrous miracle working being, which is the source of his miracles? Everyone would accept that, yeah? Because the guy can't see, he can not even stand up properly, but everything is coming to him. Everything is working perfectly in his house. In exactly the same way, the motion and duties of particles of air in plants and trees and blossom and fruit, all of which are missives of the eternally besought one, antique dominical works of art, miracles of power, and wonders of wisdom, indicate that the particles, the atoms, are acting under the command and at the will of an all-wise and glorious maker, an all-generous and beauteous creator. There is no other way you can solve this issue. There is no other way. That is why all these scientists, physicists, chemists, they're working harshly, to understand the meaning of existence. They just can't solve it. Because at one point, when they reach at one point, they say, we cannot go beyond this. We don't know how it occurs. You might remember, I think was it last week, I gave you one example. Even with a simple act that human beings do, raising my hand like this, the process starts in the brain when neurons in the brain fire. And according to the experiments, Libet experiment, the arm moves 550 milliseconds after neurons fire. And they think that this is deterministic. We have no will. And then Libet says, well, within the two events in between, 220 milliseconds after the firing of the neurons, we can see that the consciousness step in, human consciousness. It can decide to allow the act to occur, the arm to be lifted, or it can veto it, according to Libet. And in a way, they say, oh, we solved it. Yes, there is determinism. The brain does start the process, but we still have that consciousness to decide or, against it or for it. And there we go. We solved it. No, they haven't solved anything. Because they haven't explained at the beginning, why did the neurons fire? What made them fire? Where does the command come from? What triggers it? Then what happened to causality in physics? Neurons fire, but what caused it to fire? See, there's something before it, which is metaphysical. We cannot detect it. And it's most probably your soul. That's where the commands begin with. That's where the command begins. So particles of the earth also, since they are the source and means for shoots and plants produced by seeds, each of which is a different factory and a workbench, a different printing press, treasury, the antique, a different manifesto proclaiming the glorious Maker's names and ode hymning his perfections. It is definite as 2 plus 2 equaling 4, that the particles of the earth are acting at the command, with the permission and through the will and power of an all-glorious Maker, who is the Lord of the command be, and it is. Kun feyekun. So nothing occurs without the command be, kun, and to whose command everything is subjugated, and in this we believe. We are the believers, and in this we believe. We don't say, there is randomness there. We don't say it all happens because just probabilities by themselves. We don't accept those things. We know the power behind it, and this we believe. I'm almost there. The second matter indicates briefly the duties and instances of wisdom in the motion of particles. The materialists, people who do not believe in God, the materialists, whose use of their reason is limited to what is immediately apparent to them. So their reasoning is limited to what is apparent to them, what they can see. This is the materialist. Have in their nonsensical philosophies, which are based on foundations of futility, taken the transformation of particles, which they regard as a result of coincidence, as the fundamental basis of all their principles, and shown that divine works and creatures result from those transformations. So they only act according to what they could see. If they can't see something, if they cannot detect it, then they don't accept it. Well, this is happening. We don't know how it's happening, but it's happening. And it causes this to happen. And it creates this, and it forms this. But their understanding is limited to their eyes. Sometimes in the past, scholars used to say their intellect has dropped into their eyes, onto their eyes. The intellect has dropped onto their eyes. That's what they used to say. They believe in what they see. Yet, what do we see? Yeah, seeing is very limited. Very limited. We see only between the certain, spectrum of light. We don't see beyond that.
We don't.
Sorry?
We don't see the most important thing that we use every 3 seconds. We do not see most important thing that we use every 3 seconds.
Yes, what is that?
Yeah. Oxygen.
Oxygen, yes. Yes. We don't see each other's intellect either, We don't see things like that. We don't see the soul. We don't see many things. It is not just the metaphysical things. We don't see physical things too. As I said before, we have never seen for example, gluon. It's within the atomic particle. The nucleus of the atom that holds the protons together. We never seen a gluon. We never seen many things. But sometimes mathematically we can configure those, so we can understand them. But using the same logic, same mathematics, when you look at the universe, you should be saying, if you're an intelligent person, there is great mathematics here, then there must be a great mathematician. There's great chemistry here, then there must be great chemist, physicist, biologist, all in one. Yes. So again, in their nonsensical philosophies, they think they are all based on the foundations of futility, and they are all occurring through the transformation of particles, which they regard as a result of coincidence, as the fundamental basis of all their principles, and shown the divine works and creatures result from those transformations. Anyone with a grain of intelligence would know how, contrary to reason, is there attributing creatures adorned with infinite instances of wisdom to something based on purposeless, meaningless coincidence, which is quite without order. Sometimes people don't realize this, they just want to solve the problem and they invent terms. You might remember, when evolutionists wanted to solve the problem where animals know exactly what they're doing, they invented a term, instinct. When you say instinct, that's it. It's all solved. Birds know where to fly. Sea turtles know exactly when they come to this world where to go. All of these things they know. And the arts that they produce, that we are amazed, unintelligent creatures. The spider, spinning a web. It's amazing. It's a little tiny creature. All the insects that land on it, they get stuck, but the spider is running on top of it like this. And it's got more legs. The others have 6 legs. Insects. Spider, arachnid. It has 8 legs. There's some sort of a unique thing on his legs that don't get stuck on its own web. And the web is done with ultraviolet reflectors. That's why insects come and are attracted to it. Everything is unique there. You know that this is not coming from the spider itself. You know that there is no university for spiders. They attend there's a spider professor there, you know, make sure when you're spinning the web, you've got to take this into calculation. No. They come to this world, they know exactly what to do. Exactly what to do, which means they are not the geniuses. The genius is behind them. The power that governs them. Yes. So, whereas from the point of view of the wisdom of the all-wise Quran, the transformation of particles, transformation of these particles, atoms, have many purposes and duties, and demonstrate many instances of wisdom. There's wisdom there. And the Quran points to these duties and instances of wisdom with many of its verses, such as, and there is nothing but exalts his limitless glory and praise, the Quran says. Everything in the universe exalts him. Everything. Some with their tongues, some with their actions, some with their performances that they do without, being aware of it. But everything submits to his will in the universe. Okay, inshallah, I'll stop there.